Welcome to GovCon Unscripted, where we dive into the unfiltered stories and strategies from all around the world of government contracting. Join host Chelsea Roberts as she explores how to navigate, thrive, and win in this complex but lucrative industry.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to GovCon Unscripted. I'm your host, Chelsea Roberts, CEO of Collaborative Compositions, and today I've got with us Renee and Greg Glendenning, CEOs, founders of Quality Control University. Renee, Greg, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Good morning. Thank you for having us on. My name's Renee, and this is
Greg.
And we do have an online training program called the Quality Control University. We've been in federal contracting. Do we want to date ourselves?
It's been a minute.
Way over 30 years. So for about 30 years, we've dealt with federal contracting and different federal agencies. We've held lots of hats. Greg came from commissioning and test and balance side of the world, and then I pulled him into quality control for general contractors.
Off to the dark side.
And I held all the hats. So project manager, superintendent, QC manager. I owned a very successful general contracting company along the Front Range in Colorado, and we did federal contracting as well. And then I graduated out of the 8A program. And since then, I have wanted to give back and help federal contractors with a need that I saw as a contractor. And since then, we've been training other QC managers and contractors on quality control requirements, because that's one area that they don't think of at bid time, and it can really cost a lot of money.
Yeah, and I think we provide a very unique perspective because Renee came up as a degreed engineer, took the college route and came up through construction that way. I went through the sheet metal union and came up through the trades and through being a subcontractor and a tradesman. And we both met at the same place. So we both provide a very unique aspect on college versus trades, and where you can end up is the exact same place.
I love that. I love that. What a meet cute story. That's so cute. I love it.
He doesn't tell the whole story. When we first met, I wanted to kick his company off site because he was working for a commissioning firm that wanted to take control and didn't have the best interest of my company in mind. Yeah. It actually gets a lot funnier, but at any rate, that's where we met. So.
It was a very unique meeting at first, for sure.
That's great. Now you two are working together and bringing quality control to other contractors, which is such an important role.
It is. And it's something you need to think of at bid time, right?
Absolutely.
Then. Please.
Yeah. Absolutely. What are some of the challenges that you see in quality control these days in federal contracting?
I see contractors jumping into the federal arena without understanding what a cost sink it can be if you don't think of it at bid time. Soft-spoken federal clients may not require you to have a QC manager on site, but it's very paper heavy. And no matter what federal contractor you're working for, it's costly. So you have to pay attention to how they're going to handle submittals, how many submittals they're going to require you to have, how they're going to track the paperwork. If they use their own program, like the Corps of Engineers has QCS RMS, you need to make sure you understand that. So it's one of those sinks that I see over and over again. We're the cleaners. We get called in when people jump into those waters and they're treading and they're starting to go under. And we really want to help educate general contractors and other contractors thinking of federal work to think about it before, because we would much rather help you from the start than to try to get in and help you from drowning. That's not as much fun.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Yeah.
What
so
do you
that's
see, Greg?
Number one is making sure that they understand the requirements. And then number two, there aren't really good training programs that talk to QC managers and tell them what they need to do daily on a project from cradle to grave. And other federal clients may have QC certificates they want you to go to. Again, Corps of Engineers have got a one-day class, and what they tell you is 1,000-foot level, and basically they hammer it into you, the difference between QA and QC, and everything is your fault. And you are responsible for everything. But that doesn't help your QC managers. They go through that class and they come out probably more scared than when it went in. Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily teach them how to do that. And so that's the other stumbling block I think that we see.
Yeah, people, when they get into the Army Corps of Engineers world, they think that they've got a QA QC class and they'll get me certified. That just gives you license to be able to work on their projects. It tells you what they need from you to make them successful and not what you need to do to be successful for the company that you're working for.
So those would probably be the
Interesting.
two biggest.
Yeah. And I imagine in working in federal contracting, I realize that there's such an important factor of quality control and quality management from all aspects when you're performing on a contract. And I'm surprised to hear that there's not many training programs out there that are available for QAs and QC managers.
I wish there was, from cradle to grave. When I was thrown on my first project, they gave me a pod, literally one of those storage pods. That was my office, one generator and a printer, and said, here's your spec book, kid, go figure it out. And I was like, go figure what? What am I supposed to be
Yeah.
doing? What files do I have to keep? And our world is changing electronically, and AI and all of our fancy management programs, which are amazing. And so I think a lot of folks that jump into the federal arena think I'm going to go get Prolog or some amazing big software, and I'm going to pay this big dollar, and then it's going to do everything, and now I'm set. And a lot of times you need to tailor those forms for the contract or tailor them for what analytics you're wanting to track, and they don't understand that's an additional cost, and it can just snowball. It can just snowball for contractors.
Yeah, it's only as intelligent and as smart as the person that's setting it up that knows what needs to be done.
Right.
And there's a lot of wonderful software out there. There's a lot of wonderful programs.
And we've used them all, and they're awesome as long as you understand how to use them.
Absolutely. You need to know the fundamentals and the basics to be able to get it to do what you want it to do.
Right.
Isn't it just always so funny when you get a new technology and you're like, this is going to save my life. This is just going to be the best thing. This is all I need for the rest of everything. It's going to be out of the box. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it never seems to work out like that. It
No,
never
not
seems
straight
to
out
be
of the
quite as
box.
useful. Yeah.
No.
There's no customer support.
That also.
Our customer
for
support.
QCs.
And the other thing I think contractors don't realize is you can dual hat QC a lot of times with a lot of federal contractors. So a lot of contracting officers will let you dual hat with an SSHO, or I've seen it dual hat with super. You can dual hat it, but that means that those folks need to be trained above and beyond what role you usually use them on. So you can't really expect a super or a SSHO to just hit the ground running on the paperwork and all the QC items without understanding everything they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
Roles and
absolutely.
responsibilities. It's huge, but so basic.
I think that's uncommonly laid out and well defined in government contracting process, because I think you also, like, oftentimes you've got to have labor categories. You'll propose labor categories that the government thinks that you need, and in reality it's one of those has to be somehow responsible for quality control, and no one ever says, I feel like there's not enough volunteers for that role, and saying, oh, I'll put myself on the line. I'll be the one to be responsible for the quality of what's delivered. And then they come out of it.
Daily.
Exactly. And that's unfortunate, because you would think that there's some desire to have at least not only an external facing person, but some internal awareness as to the quality of your systems, the quality of your execution, the quality of whatever you're putting out. That would be something that's prioritized a little bit more heavily.
Agreed. I think some of that goes back to analytics. We live in a world where KPI and analytics are so huge, and quality control is the one analytic that I can definitely define for you once it bites you in the butt. And you can definitely see the losses, but by then it's too late. And so seeing those analytics up front, when big managers can't quantify that up front, they can quantify it on the back end. Hindsight's always 2020, but quantifying that up front is a more difficult task. And I think that then quality control gets shoved under the rug.
Yeah, you definitely know if you're going to bring on a quality control manager full time, what that's going to cost, benefits, etc., hours and days worked. But really the savings is if there's no expenditures at the end of the project,
and
finishes on
and you
time.
can process that final payout because money is important. Cash is king for all small contractors.
That's right. And it's not only the general contractor that you're working for that's making money. If your subcontractors aren't successful with quality control or whatever they're doing, whatever their trade is, then you've partially failed as a general contractor. Everybody's there to make money. Nobody's doing it for funsies.
No. And then that's a big key, right? And we train more subs, I think, sometimes monthly than I do general contractors, because if the GC has a weak QC and then putting it all on the sub, then the sub's tanking and they don't really know what their responsibilities should be and when they can push back and say, hey, general contractor, this really should be your team, and your team's not doing that. And we've got the proof, and we can provide that paper trail to protect us.
Yeah, we've seen it that way, where you've got a good subcontractor that the work that they perform in the field is fantastic. They just don't know what the requirements are for quality and for quality. And so when you have that training on board, either we're training subcontractors or you have a good quality control manager that wants to partner with the subcontractor, use the carrot and not the stick. And it makes them successful for the next project. And that's what you want, is you want to develop those relationships through quality control to bring them to the next one, which gets easier and easier because you know what to expect.
And it's a mindset we're trying to switch with QC managers too, right? Again, big stick, right? For years, you're not going to make friends, but you're there for the hammer. And that does not work in our industry today. It just doesn't. You get more bees with honey, and you need to be seen as part of a solution instead of a problem. And so many times when the QC manager steps on site, you're just like an inspector. You're like a consultant. You're an OSHA. You're loved just as much as some other folks in our realm. And it doesn't have to be that way. You just have to be a human. When you're doing inspections, just talk to people. Tell them what you're doing. Hey, this looks great. I'm taking this picture because I want to show how great you're doing. Not necessarily, I'm here to nail you to the wall.
You're there to protect them as much as to make sure that what they're doing meets the contract.
And that's a mindset we really work hard on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it must be challenging to work with folks that have been in that position of being the disliked, and I hate to throw a name out there, the OSHAs of the world, who are only coming on to punish you and to find something wrong. They're only here when things go wrong. It must be really challenging to overcome that personality and that character switch.
And some folks are open to it, and they're open to understanding that whole culture on site has been changing. Some folks aren't, and they just don't get to pick and choose their projects. They just don't get the same reputation that those that are willing to change that mindset and understand that it's important to come with solutions, not just with problems, because then you're seen as part of the team. And that's really the joy of being a QC manager. You get to be part of that construction team.
And that comes back to starting all the way at bid time. Quality control managers that are on staff can definitely help in aspects of testing and air barrier and commissioning,
schedule development,
and help picking and have weight on. We're looking at these contractors for XYZ scope. How have they been? Do they need some help, or how's their quality? And there's big time benefit there. You can really help at the very beginning to make the process go well, clear to the end.
Absolutely.
Now, was there a point at which you both decided, hey, we should start some sort of training program? We know it well enough that we feel comfortable training, and that we feel like we should put ourselves out there and put ourselves on our necks on the line and say, hey, we're welcoming people and we want to train them.
It actually started when I owned my own general contracting company. When you start, my partners and I had decades in that area, decades doing general contracting for federal contractors. But when you start under your own flag, you need experience under your flag. And that takes a lot of time. And so in order to save book, I would rent myself out to other general contractors in the area, and I would go audit their programs or go do QC on their site for a project. And more people, after we got enough work under our own belt that we were off to the races, I still had other general contractors calling and coming and saying, hey, we got into some trouble. We don't have someone. They're throwing our QC off site. They didn't meet it. They don't like this. We jumped in. Or can you just come audit? Because I think maybe my QC is not doing something right and the team's not gelling. Can you come take a look at this? And so that really made a division under my company. And so we had a quality control division, and I would place QC managers on other contractors' site all across the US. And so that really kicked off that. And then I realized that I'm only one person and I only had one Greg at the time. And so I realized I really needed an online training program for my own folks. And that's really how this spurred, right? It's developed and added on to it. But this is the same program that we developed for my company to be successful and help other GCs to be successful in quality control. And that's what birthed it.
Well, and it's real world training. We've made a lot of mistakes. Quality control managers
are so expensive to train.
Learn from their mistakes. They could be small, they could be massive. So we took those mistakes, whether it be on the paper side, on the contracting side, on the one-on-one side with the people in the field,
how to manage meetings, what to include in a meeting,
roles and responsibilities,
as-bills, you name it.
We took all those lessons and we made the training. We both looked at it as, what would we have appreciated when we first started? What would have helped? What were the pitfalls? What were the tips and the tricks that would have made us more successful quicker? and nothing exists. And so you go back, and we've even looked at construction management programs. Quality control on a 4-year degree is a quarter or a half a semester or a semester.
Sometimes it's just us going in and talking to the class, because we do that to our local universities, but it kills us because it's like we can't cram into 40 minutes what you need to know to manage this.
And it's specifically geared online.
Yeah.
It's in a talking format. We have blogs, and because everybody's unique, everybody has their own, everybody has their own problems that wish that they had somebody to talk it through with, somebody that knows what needs to be done or that can help them get to a solution. And
we like to say, we're not saying take our training and you'll never make a mistake. That's not possible. But we like to say, go make your own. Don't make ours. We have 30 years of mistakes that us and our QCs have witnessed and gotten past. So learn from that, and then go find your own, and then bring them back to us. Let us know. We've really developed a really strong community of QC managers. So come back and tell us what happened, and then we'll help the community understand, whoa, we're seeing this on contracts. So we really need to be looking and focusing here. Yeah.
And 30 years is a long time. I'm not dating anybody, but 30 years is a long time to be doing something. Have you seen the challenges that people are facing? Do those change over time, or are they pretty consistent?
No, the only constant to federal contracting is change.
That's
it. I've seen so much, again, dating us when we got in the industry, a handshake, right? Deals and contracts were serious all the time with a handshake. And now I have my admin send that to your office. And that's how it started. And then we went through a phase where everyone was tightening up, and it was just focus on CYA. And then we went through the phase in the federal world with all the computer IT protection, right? All the new regulations around second and third sign-in authenticities, and then everything we've got to have at the main office for mainframe protection, and who can have prints and who can't have prints. And then COVID hit, and that rocked all of our world, and it shut down a lot of federal project sites. And again, we're going through one right now with the shutdown. Our hearts go out to all of our contractors. We've lived through shutdowns. What people don't understand is just when the government turns on, our current projects may kick back up. We may get pay apps finally processed that we've been sitting on, and that's been hurting us. But what they don't understand is until that budget's set, no one's getting anything new. And so when I have people around me freaking out only about the shutdown, where were you last year when our budget wasn't approved until March? I mean, like all the work that you've been on and a lot of the end of year rush, it's all done and wrapped. And now we're dead in the water. And it's increasingly harder year by year, I think, to try to plan to float. Your retention is so huge to small businesses. And we try to cross train, and we try to dual hat, and you try to keep your staff, but you can only bleed so long. The tariffs are another one, right? We've seen different industries being hit so hard on bringing in material and the cost of the material. And then you got to go back to your contractor and say, this is an unforeseen cost, just like an unforeseen condition. And then you're battling out those change orders. That was something we never even would have dreamt. If you had told me about that 15 years ago, I would have laughed and said, oh, please. That's crazy.
Probably one of the latest things that we've seen in a shift in the industry is that project engineers are being brought into the QC role. Project engineers are definitely valuable, but they are the jack of all trades on a project. They help PM, they help safety, they help QC, they help the superintendents integrate with the subcontractors, etc. So whoever's going to be doing quality control on the project, quality control is a set path regardless of what your title is, right? Or regardless of how much time.
We don't care what your name is or your title on your badge. I don't care.
Regardless of how much time you spend on it, there's still processes that need to be done, still things that you can learn. There's still the right way and the wrong way to do it. And so that's probably the latest shift that we've been seeing, is that how can AI make my job easier? Right?
Shortcuts.
Do I really need to bring on a full-time quality control manager? Some projects, yes. Federal projects, they won't let anybody else be a quality control manager without having that experience.
But on softer spoken clients, you can dual hat it, right?
Absolutely. You can dual hat it, or you can bring in a project engineer that will help cover that role.
But talking about all the horror stories, federal contracting is still a really good way to be in the industry. I always say that because I know sometimes all the horror, right?
Yeah,
it's guaranteed, right? Once you have that contract, and if you know the game and you're pushing the paper and you're pushing the pay apps and you're doing your schedule loading right, it's guaranteed work and they pay. You don't have to go chase someone like on a commercial contract. It's illegal to shop your price, right? So they're not going to be shopping your price. I used to hate, obviously we did commercial work too, but my commercial jobs, man, it was so hard when they would take all of the work you do and then they give it to your competitors and say, hey, can you beat this? In the federal game, that's not the way it goes. Don't get discouraged. Any of your listeners listening, keep watching your podcast because it's got good nuggets of wisdom and it'll give you such a good life. It gives your family, your employees, as provided for our family in ways that we talk about it all the time. We would never be where we were. Our kids wouldn't have had the opportunities they had. We are very thankful to the federal programs and federal contracting.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, it sounds like there's a lot of things that have changed over the years. And one of those things that you mentioned was during the shutdown, everything's come to a standstill. But when that tap turns back on, it's going to be a flood rush. And it's going to hit contractors probably harder than most fourth quarters hit contractors. What are some of the pieces of advice that you have for folks that are trying to make sure that their quality stays at a high level when that turns back on?
It really is a good time, right? To train your staff, right? Keep them busy, right? Train them and so they can hit the ground running. Make sure you have the processes. I don't care if you're old school, small, and you're doing file cabinets. I know that sounds ridiculous, but we still have customers that do that and I'm good with it. Or whether you're doing Excel and Microsoft Word, Bluebeam pads, whatever you're doing, dust off the dust on all those processes and make sure that you've got standard forms, standard procedures. The more standard you are across your projects, the more cost effective and productivity you're going to see. So that would be our biggest thing. And we've been running sales for a lot of our contractors right now because again, no one has that kind of cash. You're starving, right? You don't have that money to spend, but now's the very best time to take that time to train and make sure all of your processes are in order and everything is ready to go so you can hit that ground running.
And Greg, what do you think? What are some of the best pieces of advice that you've got for folks once that tap turns back on?
It's hard, right? Because you've got contractors that don't know how long that time frame will be. So they've either taken that time, they've trained their staff, they've done inventory, they
swept up that shop floor. You can see your face in it.
Polished all the tables, and then your ownership is constantly watching that clock and watching to wait and see when that tap just starts to turn. For people that want to make sure that they're ready and prepped with quality control is have them start getting involved in the bid process. Have them start brushing up on the projects that were shelved because there was no budget. Start opening those packages back up, start visiting with those subcontractors again, start going over with your superintendents and your project managers, making sure that you're well poised and well staged to be able to handle that influx. And the sizing of projects, you may be able to have a couple of projects under one quality control manager. You may be able to dual hat this one, or you may be able to not dual hat, and you need to bring on somebody else. But it's working with your project management team, working with your estimating team, forcing your way in there. That's not a normal spot for a quality control manager to be. It should be, but you need to force your way in there and show your value and show how you can save those monies and identify those pitfalls up front before they become an issue later on down the road.
And if you have projects you're waiting again for the budget, right? You can do a lot up front. You can do testing plans up front. You can get a submittal register done. You can scrub a register. You can have all your file folders electronically or hard done and made. You can set that front end up for then when it pops.
Absolutely.
And now it sounds like being involved in quality control is a much bigger role than I'm sure a lot of people are viewing it from the outside. What are some of the main factors that you think are also involved in quality control that you don't often see included in like a job description?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm getting so tired of, you do submittals. You're a submittal clerk. How cute. And that's just a small piece of what we do, right? So it's everything from kickoff meetings and making sure that those kickoff meetings are documented so that anything that's discussed, so you can go back and say, no, we really talked about that. We talked about it here in the meeting. It's weather delays. It's project delays. It's getting pre-project pictures so that we didn't damage that sidewalk or that curb, because here's the picture before we mobilized and this is what it looked like. So it's protection from cradle to grave all the way through. Close out, it's warranty conferences. We stand behind a camera and train owner training. We film it so that we can give that over as one of the deliverables. It's so much in quality control besides just a submittal.
Yeah, you're just not sitting at your desk doing submittals. You're not just processing RFIs. You're in the field doing inspections.
Material
You're
inspection.
You're coordinating with the third-party inspection agency
Yep.
for all the civil type items and structural. You're out working with the commissioning agent, and you're trying to herd cats during that whole process.
You're managing that whole process,
Yep.
not the commissioning agent.
You're working with the fire alarm contractor and doing testing with the local fire department or the AHJ. You're
Yeah.
working with the design team.
Yeah,
And you're working in your direct liaison with the government contractor that you hold the contract with. What people don't realize is that for quality control, you are the tip of the funnel. Everything flows in through you and everything flows out through you, and vice versa.
Right.
And so you're busy.
Yeah, you're that gap. You're the bridge gap between the designers and the end user and the government
Mhm.
entity. You're that bridge.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's a lot involved. Do you teach all of this at the university?
We do. We go through it all, cradle to grave, what you should be doing, and give the examples of templates of, hey, we ran this. So go tune your fancy software up, make sure you got this inside of it. And if you don't have that, or you're not have the money to buy that, you can run quality control program on Bluebeam with Excel and Word, and you can make it work.
You're the end user who you're building for. You can wrap it up in any bow that you want to. They just care about what the contents are. So
Sure.
Make sure it's in there.
I certainly commend the big,
Yeah.
humongous general contractors out there that'll spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on a Procore or a Prolog,
Right.
and they are just as effective as the $4 or $5 million contractor a year that wants to work off of Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what bow it's in; it matters what the present is.
Absolutely.
So it just doesn't matter.
But there's so much to it. We say all the time, QCs earn their money on the front end of the project and on the
Mhm.
back end. You have to get your guys out of the dirt. And then on the back end, you need to wrap it up. And that includes everything at the end, right? It's the as-builts, the O&Ms, the spare parts. Holy moly, manage your spare parts. Don't let them go be used for punch list items, right? But if all those things aren't done, check, the federal, they're really good at holding our money at the end.
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
manage painage like no other. And we say all the time, those contracts are there to protect the federal client, but they're there to protect us too. Know
Yeah.
your contract, and use it as a tool, and make sure that on that back end, everything's wrapped up, like he said, in that nice little shiny bow, so that then they turnover day, cut me my final check. Because that's a big chunk for us as small contractors.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's our profit.
Yeah.
Unless you taking a lot of schedule training and loading that schedule a little special. For a lot of small businesses, their profit, that's that final check that they're collecting.
Now, how do people find out about the Quality Control University?
Absolutely. So we are at qcuniversity.net. We're on LinkedIn. Come look us up. We would love to connect with you and help you out.
Awesome. Now, if people want to get a hold of either one of you, are you both on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah.
All
We
right.
For all the magic, we're everywhere.
All the socials, all the magic, everywhere, we're everywhere.
We're trying really hard so that people can find us.
And hopefully this has been a fantastic platform for you both to get that knowledge out there and to
We
get some
really
wisdom out to
appreciate
QC folks
You've
that
been
are
wonderful as
Thank you
well.
for having us on.
absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a great episode. I'm sure folks are going to find a lot of wisdom, a lot of chunks of knowledge, and what they didn't find, they can come go take class at QC University. So all those folks, take the opportunity, look up Renee and Greg, reach out, and don't forget to subscribe and come back next week for our episode. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of GovCon Unscripted with your host, Chelsea Roberts. Do you have a GovCon story or need guidance in government contracting? Connect with Chelsea on LinkedIn to be a guest on the show or to enhance your business strategy. Don't forget, your network is your net worth. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your growing GovCon community.